Hey guys, welcome back to Pocket Insider, an educational platform that helps the communities exploring adoption on Polkadot network. Today's episode would cover a really different topic comparing to what we have done before about community validators. So as we know that the consensus layer is always essential for blockchain platform to exist. However, the, com the communities, especially end user, would primarily focuses on the utilities of the application layer. They often do not consider whether the blockchain they're using is secure or not, and also decentralized to ensure sustainability in the future. Um, the Polkadot network is a completely decentralized layer zero blockchain that focuses solely on ensuring the development of the entire network with interoperabilities, scalabilities, and securities, yeah, and achieved through the decentralized of the consensus layer, including validators, collator, and nominators. Following the ongoing series of Slack.event in the ecosystem, we have invited some notable contributors, including Stefan Polkadot and Reference, to discuss about Polkadot network consensus layer in general and also the importance of decentralized of the network and definitely the current staking status of the whole network as well. So welcome guys. How are you doing today and how do you feel about the current state of the Polkadot community when everyone is talking about a locked up event? So firstly, maybe Peter first.
Yeah, hello Chris. Yeah, I'm doing great, just fine. Thank you really for invitation and for organizing this webinar. I think these are really exciting times. It's been 2 years since we saw like first auctions on Polkadot. So as a Polkadot community, like back at the time, like we were writing a ton of articles and informing people and actually getting them to go into the crowd loans and support their favorite projects. So I can really believe myself, it's already been 2 years, so it's already it's really exciting to see that, Polkadot is still here, it's still flourishing, there are like ton of new things and new upgrades. We recently saw the launch of OpenGov, which is really exciting to be able to participate, in the future of the whole chain. So yeah, I think the Polkadot is stronger than ever before, and actually, I'm not really worried that these big unlock events, will change anything about that.
How about you, Jim and Vic?
Hi, Chris. Likewise, thanks for having me on. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Jim Farley. I run Certum, which provides blockchain infrastructure services to Polkadot, to various different parachains. So, yeah, it's an exciting time. So I was watching the block where the unlock became available, and everything ticked on with the relay chain, with the Polkadot relay chain, and it was exciting to see. And it kind of feels like now we're moving on to the next stage of Polkadot. Like the first crowd loan happened, 2 years went by. We're at this unlike event. Those parachains have really grown and developed, and seems like there's a really bright future.
Okay. How about you, Sig?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi. I'm Sig. For those who don't know me, I'm working for staking facilities as a node operator and also run my own .summer validators and collators. I am very much into all things governance and staking and try to educate people as much as possible. Active as an ambassador, registrar, counselor, treasury manager, and all the stuff. And I was super interested in what will happen this night, because for me in German time it was 4 a.m. and I was a bit worried about my interlay volts, so I set an alarm clock and woke up early just to see nothing happened. So everybody was expecting something, price action, but we were super safe. I guess this was already priced in, and we just see another demonstration of how strong the ecosystem is and how everybody is striving for the best outcome. Also, we didn't see any of the VCs flipping their tokens, but I guess we also have to look back and see that all these dots have got locked in at a much higher price tag, and so I think people know what to do, and that's stake the dot.
Yeah, right. So before we get into more question about the episode, so the important question that's always asked everyone coming to Polkadot Insider interview is why you choose Polkadot as a destination for contributing. So maybe Peter
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, so for me, like I remember actually reading about Polkadot 4 years ago, and even I went through the white paper a couple of times. Took me a while to actually get it right, but thanks to that, I realized, that the world is going to be really multi-chain. That there's not going to be like a single cryptocurrency ruling them all, like be it Ethereum or Solana or whatever, but there's going to be a multi-chain world. And that world will be represented by Polkadot, right? Because it was from the first day it was designed as a layer 0, so as a platform that will interconnect all the chains. And I really saw the future in that, and nowadays we can see this world really materializing. So that was actually this idea, that was something that brought me to Polkadot itself. And that's why we have started a community in Czech and Slovakia back at the time, because there was none and people didn't really know much about Polkadot. So we wanted to share our wisdom about the network, so we started a community here, and since then we are building it every day, still writing articles, still doing Twitter spaces, and besides that, we are also infrastructure providers for almost the whole ecosystem. So this is actually what brought me in, the idea of the multi-chain world.
So there is one infrastructure provider to rule them all, and that's Polkadot does.
Not yet, not yet.
How
Soon,
about you,
my friend,
Jim?
soon.
So for me, I was running nodes just as a hobby for a couple of years. And then in January 2021, I decided to actually like take that hobby and turn it into a proper business. So I registered Certum, and I wanted to provide more transparency in service provided in the field of node runners. So what I did was, at that time, is I surveyed the market, and I had always been aware of Polkadot, but during the time I was doing this as a hobby, it was still very much in development, and didn't want to get involved in anything necessarily that early stage of development. But once I surveyed the market, I saw Kusama had just launched, and Kusama was running the 1KV program. And then I looked at everything that was going on with Polkadot in terms of architecture, how thought out it was, how it really seemed promising and what it was trying to do with parachains and the relay chain parathreads. I said, this is where I really want to focus my energy and effort as a startup. And so I landed on substrate-based chains, and that's been the main focus of Certum for the past almost 3 years now.
How about you, Sik?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty funny that we three are almost just exclusively operating in the Dotsama ecosystem, right? Because that's something that rarely happens. Yeah, for me, I started into crypto back in 2012 when I got in touch with Bitcoin and was teaching other students how to run a Bitcoin node on their laptops, and was kind of always viewing crypto from the sidelines and really focusing on the tech aspects. That's why I still haven't made it, but I'm having fun doing so. And yeah, it was then following what Ethereum was doing, and that was leading up to the birth of Polkadot, because I was watching Gavin doing his stuff, and I really liked his vision because he always was one of the biggest minds that shared his vision and experience, and I loved that. And I think Polkadot is also one of the least chilled blockchains, because it was always fact-based, and that's what I loved about it. It's not like pump and dump or some paid influencers, but really on the tech, and that's what struck me in.
Okay. Actually, that you guys told about doing these things as hobby. So I'm curious to know that this hobby, is it costly?
Well, for us, it's not a hobby anymore, actually, because since we got involved in the Web3 space, like actually the very reason, I found Polkadot was, back at the time, there was also a bear market, and I was kind of like getting bored and searching for a new project, and that's kind of like how I discovered Polkadot. And I was like, I really need to be in. So we started the community and started doing some stuff, but obviously, that's kind of hard to live by from only like income from writing articles and so on. So we actually ended up doing the infrastructure as well, because originally I'm like a software developer, and I used to work for Red Hat, which is like the biggest company producing like a Linux distribution, which is used for running most of the servers in the world. So I got plenty of experience doing this kind of stuff. So we started on Kusama, then Polkadot, then collators and parachains, and actually we were able to turn it on to like a real business. But obviously in the bear market we are not doing as well as we used to, but still it's kind of enough for us to stay in the ecosystem. So that's really great about it.
Yeah, and
that's why
I
you
think
sent me your OnlyFans link, right? Beer market vibes, other
Yeah,
streams
like
of
we were
revenue.
this close, to creating the account. So
And I think like is it an expensive hobby? Like it seems to me about 5 years ago, it was easier to be a hobbyist because all the chains out there, they weren't as mature, and they didn't have as much investment in them, and really a lot of these chains that were being developed by hobbyists as well. Whereas as in the past 5-6 years, that's really shifted to some proper investment, and these chains being developed the way you would see in an enterprise somewhere. And so that's not to say that there aren't hobby chains, there aren't things going on outside of these more established chains, because there are. But I think taking it from hobby into an actually business, while it still very much feels like a hobby, you have to treat it with the respect and the attention that goes above and beyond the hobby.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
Yeah, I also think that Polkadot's our second wife. There's no weekends, no holiday, and no nights without PagerDuty. It's really it's what Jim said, that it's grown so professional, and each of the chains has millions or billions of dollars in assets, and we can't risk to fuck them up. So it's another topic than a few years ago.
Okay. So we all know that on Polkadot we have three main actor, right? So validators, nominators, and also collator. And I believe that it's very crucial to explain all these roles for the community, because mostly not too many blockchains that have all these roles, right? So can you explain this role? How can they connect this, and how it's work, and all in a very down to earth way?
Yeah, of course, for sure. So usually, if we are talking about Polkadot, we usually mean by that the so-called relay chain. This is like a main blockchain that secures Polkadot, and also its parachains, and I will get to those in a second. And so in this relay chain, obviously, is a like proof of stake network. So that means there are validators who are running the nodes and securing the network, but also there are nominators who are basically delegating the tokens to those validators in order to secure the whole proof of stake system. So validators are running the network, nominators or delegators are actually giving tokens to validators and help them to secure the network. And then we have parachains, and parachains have a really nice feature thanks to Polkadot's architecture, and that is they are using so-called shared security, which is given to them by the Polkadot relay chain. So what it means that even though parachains are blockchains on its own, they derive their security from the Polkadot relay chain and their validators. But on the other hand, they are still blockchains, so they still need some kind of node to validate transactions and produce their blocks. And those parachain validators are called the collators. So on the parachain side, we have collators, and on the relay chain side, we have validators. And actually, one interesting fact for our listeners is that Some of the parachains have also proof of stake system on their own, because as a parachain you can choose what kind of consensus you will have. So for instance, on Moonbeam, you have proof of stake as well. So that means if you have a token of that parachain, in case of Moonbeam, it's called Glimmer. So if you have some Glimmer on Moonbeam, you can stake it as well the same way you would do it on Polkadot Relay Chain, or in a like very similar way.
So I think that it's good to have another explanations in another perspective. So how about you, Vic? Do you have any additional explanation for this question?
Yeah, I think the explanation was pretty spot on and easy to understand. So nothing to add on that end. But really we want to encourage the people to watch out for the parachains and check out if they have staking and if they have governance, or how is the governance going, because many of the parachains really have a lack of participation on that end, and we could really need some help to get governance going. Because for example, right now we can see on Moonriver they just obtained a new slot lease, and they need to swap the slot by December. Because if that doesn't happen, then Moonriver will just halt and stall because the old slot is running out. And currently the governance vote to actually swap the leases is running out with 3 days left, and needs to hit a much higher support in terms of participation in governance, because it's a root referendum, and the root track requires at least 0.5% of all the tokens to participate in the voting, otherwise it will fail. And that's why people really should watch out for the parachains, see that they're healthy, and see what they can do. As always, you can just delegate your voting power away to those who care, and then everybody is ensuring the best interests of the chain.
So an important thing that the community should be aware of is the decentralized and securities of the network that is proportionate to the number of the participants involved into validation, right? So this is the question that I will ask Jim. So how many participants currently work on Polkadot consensus layer, and why does it differ compared with other blockchain?
Thanks, Chris. So I'm going to be a little bit loose in answering this question, or give myself a little bit of leeway in terms of how I describe participants involved in validation. But first, strictly speaking, there are only a maximum of 297 validators in Polkadot that are responsible for forming consensus and producing blocks. However, because Polkadot is a nominated proof of stake network, and Peter hinted about that a little bit earlier, the nominators, which are those addresses with stake dot that are nominating one of those potential validators, they're actually the ones that are giving the power to help those potential validators to become active and produce those blocks. So there are right now thousands of addresses currently nominating validators. So if you think I said 297 max at any time active validators, but there are over 1,000 potential validators. And this is where that nominated proof of stake network comes in. Those addresses that I mentioned, there are thousands of, they've got to nominate potential validators to become active. So this is why I said I was going to be a little loose in answering the question. You know, I would argue that all of those thousands of nominators are also participating in the consensus layer of the blockchain, because without them, there's no active validators and there's no consensus. So then when you compare it, you asked me to compare how that looks to other chains. So, you know, I guess just considering proof of stake blockchains, we'll ignore proof of work and DAGs and all these other different types of chains. Well, the DAG's not the consensus algorithm, but you have different implementations of proof of stake. So you've got delegated proof of stake, and Peter mentioned Moonbeam earlier. So Moonbeam runs a delegated proof of stake consensus algorithm. You've got nominated proof of stake, like in Polkadot. And then you just have a pure proof of stake network, and they're all slightly different implementations. So in a pure proof of stake network, the stake against the validator determines the odds that that validator will create a block. So there's not like a fixed set. You just get stake as a validator, and stakers will stake against the validators, and then based on the amounts at stake, that's the odds that a block will be created, and then form consensus with the other validators. So every validator is a potential block producer in a proof of stake network at a given time. So Cardano and Mina protocol are two examples of a proof of stake network. Then in the delegated proof of stake network, like Moonbeam, you have a fixed number of nodes, and they're voted by delegators. So addresses that have tokens will delegate the nodes to produce blocks. And there's a fixed number. So if you don't make it in that top number of delegations, you're not eligible to produce blocks. So the nodes with the most delegations are active. And then the last one that I guess we can compare to, comparing it to itself, or just a description of itself, just circling back, is Polkadot. So Polkadot uses nominated proof of stake, and the network then selects the validators in Polkadot based on a special function, which in part is based on the number of nominations a node has. And the function looks to optimize the nominations across the 297 nodes that become active and make them active for block production. So a key thing to understand as part of a nominated proof of stake network is just because you nominate a node, it doesn't mean that node's going to become active when the chain runs that function to select the active set. And that's why in Polkadot, you could actually nominate up to 16 validators with your address and with your stake, because if you were just able to select one and that one wasn't selected, then you're out of luck, but at least you have 16 chances based on the algorithm or the function that runs for that nomination to be staked against a node that becomes active. So I appreciate it got in a little bit of technical complexity, but I think that nuance is really important when talking about the consensus layer and how that compares with other blockchains.
Right. It's very interesting to compare with different blockchain, and the community can see different perspective in that. Okay, so this question would be very interesting. So Polkadot is defined as the most decentralized protocol, but even Gavin Wood or any high level from Paris or Web3 Foundation cannot decide what should Polkadot do to roll in unilateral way, but give the governance control to the hand of communities who are dot holder. So what is decentralization by your definition, and what are the benefits and trade-off? So I think this question I will need three of you answer. Yeah. So maybe Peter first.
Yeah, so decentralization by definition is kind of really difficult because you can decentralize on really a lot of levels. So we can talk about the technical stuff, obviously, like how decentralized is the network itself, how decentralized is the validator set. But also we can talk about the social layer as well, like who can decide about the future of the network, like is there any kind of governance, who controls the GitHub repository with the code, who can commit the code actually and change the chain. And there are like many levels, and actually I think Polkadot really excels, in most of them. And this is what I truly love about the network, because we have one of the most decentralized consensus out there, which is nominated proof of stake, like Jim mentioned. We have OpenGov, which is one of the most sophisticated governance system which is out there, and our chain is nowadays truly in the control of the whole community. So there are not some bunch of developers, sitting somewhere and deciding, which upgrade is going to pass, but everybody can read the proposals and everybody can vote on them. Also nowadays we have a fellowship. That means that even the development of the Polkadot itself is not controlled by some kind of like a private company, but it's rather controlled by a on-chain collective. So I think that's truly beneficial as well. And also there are like many things, that most of the users really don't see. Stuff like RPC nodes, boot nodes, wallets, blockchain explorers, and all other stuff. And actually, we can see in our ecosystem that there are plenty of them. And the reason, why they are out there, because they were actually financed by the treasury to give us like more decentralization. Because the more tools we have and the more things we can actually use, means we are not dependent on like one provider that can actually go down or it can become malicious. And that means we can provide in the end more decentralization and more censorship resistant, because actually, like in my mind, decentralization is really tied to censorship resistant. So the more decentralization we have, the higher chance there is that no one will be censored on our network. So I would say that's my take on that, and this is one of the reasons I really like Polkadot itself, because Polkadot is trying to decentralize on all levels.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think one thing to also mention is that Polkadot oftentimes is leading the development activities. We have the most engaged and the most widespread development instances or teams in Polkadot. And that is even pushed more nowadays because the Web3 Foundation just released a new framework for funding of external contributors. And it's really a heavy package with 20 million Swiss francs and 5 million dots, so around about 40 million in budget for external contributions for the next year. I guess this is going to be big and will draw in a lot of participants.
So how about you, Trim? So do you think is the decentralization of Polkadot is is there any benefit or any trade-off that we can consider?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as the guys were saying, there are multiple layers of decentralization. I would consider it the inability of one actor to make one actor or entity to make the decisions for the rest of the network. But if you look at some benefits, decentralization can add security, and none of these are maxims. I'll say they can, or they may, or they usually, because you can always find the reverse case. But I'm speaking in generalizations in a way, but decentralization can add to security. So if you think of the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, a decentralized network should be more available, right? That's one of the key components of that triad. If you think of a single point of failure, a decentralized network by definition really shouldn't have one. So I think many people are also starting to learn some of those trade-offs, though. And it doesn't mean the trade-offs aren't worth it. But for instance, decentralization is often not the most cost-effective way of setting things up, because you can't get the efficiencies that a centralized entity can bring. So the best example I think of that I can use as an analogy, if there's an acquisition between two companies, one company acquires the other, when those two companies are operating independently, you could consider them decentralized, even though one may have acquired the other. If they haven't actually merged, they're decentralized. But we know there are a lot of inefficiencies running that way. Then otherwise you could join them, and then we can see them join together and get those inefficiencies, usually at the cost of employees if they're not in growth mode, or and reducing resources because you don't need to double up on anything. But then there's actually benefits that can be in that regard. So if we look at the large marketing and advertising conglomerates in the world, these companies are typically allowed to run independently even after an acquisition. So you have a central business unit, but then you'll have all the different acquisitions that just act independently, and the benefits of having that and the success they get out of that is because it allows for creativity and innovation to continue to flourish within those independently running companies. And so bringing it back to decentralized blockchain networks, I think a lot of the same things apply. Decentralized blockchain networks, they benefit from that decentralization, and that you can get innovation in different parts, and you can get creativity in different parts without a centralized entity running all of the governance and running everything from one centralized place.
Yeah, and also actually I would add up that decentralization is not like either you have it or you don't, but it's always a scale. So on one side, the more decentralized you are, it also can mean more inefficient you are as well. So it's kind of always a struggle, whether we want a more decentralization at the cost of maybe like more inefficiency. So there will be a pushback from the people, who want to like sacrifice part of the decentralization in order to be more efficient. But on the other hand, there will be a pushback again from people who really wants to promote censorship resistance, decentralization and stuff like that. So it's always kind of like a struggle, of all the participants in the network, like, where to push it. But I'm really glad that Polkadot, chose, in my opinion, the right path to actually be as much decentralized as possible.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah, and
that
also
because sorry.
one other thing, there's also a metric for network decentralization called the Nakamoto coefficient, and even on that, Polkadot is outperforming most or all of the top 10 blockchains. Not speaking of Bitcoin, but yeah, also from that metric, Polkadot is in the lead.
Right.
Even Cardano.
Yeah. That actually I used to receive a comment that Polkadot is maybe doing the biggest social experiment about decentralized societies. And to be honest, that when I'm participating in a lot of communities like Outcomes and maybe other communities, mostly people they like us, like end user, they just don't know how to use their token for governance participation. So I think that until now, Polkadot is the most participating blockchain that stockholder holder can actually know how to participate in governance. Yeah. So I think it would be a great new, and I believe that Polkadot right now is playing a long game. So hopefully everything would be successful in the future. Yeah. Okay. So the next question is that we just came officially to the Unlock token event today. And where all the data from the crowd run for the last 2 years be released. So why should the dot holder stack and delegate to smaller node, which mean community validators? I was asked about these questions.
Sure, would be a pleasure. So first, yeah, we just witnessed the first big unlock because earlier today the locked crowd loan dot tokens from the first batch of crowd loans was unlocked, and that was for the first 5 parachain slot auctions. The first 5 have been the biggest, so this has really been an impactful unlock, and we've seen more than 100 million dot getting freed up, and that's more than 10% of the supply. And yeah, the next unlocks will be less hard in that regards, because the January unlock on the 16th of January will unlock the next batch, but that's just I guess 25k million dot tokens, and then the next one will be 10 million, and then 550k. So it's really slowing down and getting down with the numbers. And we really dealt good with the current one. So your question about why should I stake it? So first, generally, why to stake? Because Polkadot is an inflationary token, and the network has a system-wide inflation. That means if you don't stake it, you can just lose, because inflation is diluting your tokens. So everybody's encouraged to stake. And therefore, Polkadot has determined an ideal stake for the network, and you should participate to gain staking rewards and fight against inflation. And why should you choose smaller validators? Yeah, Polkadot has a quite small validator set with, like Jim already said, just 296 validators. And if you take a look at the set, then like almost 90 of them are closed. This means they have either blocked nominations or take 100% commission. So that's VCs, blockchain exchanges, and all these things. And if we then take away the 5 biggest participants and the 1K validator program, there's really not too many individual participants in the validation services. So these independent community validators, how you phrased it, are super important for the network, I would say, because they are the ones who are in the communities. So they show up to events, they represent the network in everyday life. They are in the communities, forums, Twitter, they're everywhere, spreading the word about the network, about Polkadot, and try to help the participants and the stakers and everybody involved as best as possible. And I guess that's a crucial role because most of the big players don't do that at all. And that's why, in my opinion, people should recognize the community validators and stake with them, because for the staker, it doesn't hurt whom you stake. So watch out for the ones that you recognize by helping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also I would like to add that actually community validators are the ones who are giving back to the network what they have earned, in a form of the work, they are actually doing by helping others, producing content, actually educating people, organizing conferences. There are many, many community validators out there who are actually using the profits, they are having from the validation for giving it back to the community. So I think that's why it's important to support those as well.
Definitely. Okay. So my question is that I'm curious to learn more about Blockspace, right? Because Blockspace is a very, very popular keyword of Polkadot ecosystem right now. After the speak of Gavin Wood at Polkadot recorded. So how validators and collator and also nominator will take part in this in the future? What do you think, Jim?
So Blockspace is a big topic. So I'm sure, Chris, we could probably have a whole series on this. But I won't do that for the audience's sake. And what Polkadot is doing to improve the Polkadot block space. There's a ton of things through increasing execution cores, or the number of execution cores, or the parallelizing them, and asynchronous backing, and all of these different things to improve the block space. But what I'll instead of diving into all of that, I'll just give a quick overview of block space, and then that's for your audience to understand it at just a very high level, and then I'll just quickly discuss your question, validators, collators, and nominators' role in the Polkadot block space ecosystem. To put it simply, on any blockchain, you can think of a block space as the place where operations are executed, committed, and stored. So I like my example. So just to give you an example, let's say, Chris, you wanted to transfer 50 DOT to me. So most people viewing this, they'll know that process. They'll get my destination address. You'll decide the address you want to send from. You'll go to your wallet and you'll put 50 DOT. You'll double and triple check the transfer, and it all looks good, and you'll hit send. And hopefully that's all you need to worry about. But after you hit send, a lot of other things need to happen. So for instance, a check needs to be made that it's actually your wallet issuing the transaction, and it actually has the 50 DOT in it, because you can't send what you don't have. Also, the storage that shows your DOT balance needs to be decreased by 50 DOT, plus potentially any transaction fees. And then mine needs to be increased by 50 DOT. And so all of that, as well as other things, need to happen on the chain. And we refer to that place where those things happen as the block space. And, by the way, all of that needs to happen over a decentralized network, like we were talking earlier, and as close to real time as possible. And by the way, thanks for the 50 dot, Chris. So you can imagine that with the increase in the number of decentralized apps and the increased complexity of smart contracts and the greater interoperability between chains, that this block space concept itself becomes incredibly important, and the architecture is crucial for all these great things to happen. So we focus on three core attributes of block spaces: security, availability, and the flexibility of block spaces. So I won't really dive into any more. Just like decentralization, there are layers. It's like an onion. There are layers upon layers, and there are side tracks and tangents. But if we just jump back to your question, when we look at Polkadot as a block space ecosystem, and specifically the three roles of a validator, collator, and nominator, well, most are aware that validators are responsible for creating the blocks on the relay chain and participating in consensus like we were discussing. But really, you can consider them as what makes Polkadot a block space producer. So thinking about that special place where all those magic things happen with the transaction we were just discussing, the validators are fundamental key for the shared security across the Polkadot block space ecosystem, and that's where all these things are going on. So that's the perspective of validator. And again, there's much more we can go into the validator's role. But then if we look at collators, we know that collators, they operate on the parachains, and the parachains are just another component of this block space ecosystem. And the block spaces they create are going to be more specialized to specific functions like infrastructure or smart contracts. So that's that flexibility core attribute. If you remember, I mentioned three core attributes. That's that flexibility attribute in action. And so the collators, as part of working on those parachains, they're essential in the production of the block spaces on the parachain. And of course, they take part in the shared security model as well as with the relay chain. And then finally, the role of nominators in the Polkadot block space ecosystem. I really consider them a bit like a key to unlocking the previous two roles. And we say nominators, but a delegator and a delegated proof of stake network. So the bonded stake is what unlocks that functionality, so that the validators and collators are able to provide their roles to the block space, and which are so critical to creating those block spaces for the chain. So a validator without stake isn't going to be able to use its resources to create a block space for the network to use. So really, if you don't have the nominators, you don't have the delegators, you don't have that key to unlock those resources for the chain. So again, it's a very it's a subject with a lot of levels of detail and bits of complexity and just bits of side things that are relevant in one space and not relevant in another block space. So there's a lot to talk about there. But if your viewers want to find out more, Rob Habermeyer, he has a great paper that he wrote, I think, in a blog. It's not like a white paper, but it's just a blog entry, but really covers a lot of the aspects of block space that you can give you more of a deep dive into it if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I believe that this block-based ecosystem would be maybe like officially released in the next 2 to 3 years, right? As Rob said, and definitely I can't wait to figure out what would happen next with block-based ecosystem. Yeah. So next, I think this would be a very interesting part for the communities who haven't known yet how to stack the dot. So Pierre from Polkadot will have a quick tutorial about how to use Polkadot staking dashboard. And yeah, can Peter help me with this? Okay. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Peter, for such a comprehensive tutorial.
All right, Chris, thank you. So let me guys share my screen, and I'm planning to show you a couple of interesting things regarding the release of the DOT from the crowd loans. So first of all, I would like to mention 2 years ago, we only had Polkadot.js and Polkadot.js application portal for using the Polkadot ecosystem. But luckily, times have changed, and so for users who prefer more desktop approach, I wanted to show you Talisman, because in my opinion, that's currently the best wallet, and it serves as a really, really good replacement for Polkadot.js. So if you have contributed with Polkadot.js, I think now it's a really great time to switch to Talisman. So in order to do it, just search. I'll be considering you have a Chrome browser right now, but it works the same for Firefox and others. So just search from Chrome App Store. Just deny. This is the web store for extensions that you can actually install to the Google Chrome. So if you search for Talisman, here you go, Talisman, Polkadot, and Ethereum wallet. So this one you can actually install, and if you install that, it will give you this nice little icon just right next to my MetaMask account. So if you click on that, it will actually allow you to create your account. But like I said, if you already have an account, you just need to import your seed, and all your Polkadot accounts with their balances, even from various parachains, will appear over here. I just set up a new account for the purposes of this presentation, so I call it the Big Unlock Staker. And I have a little bit over 2 dots over there, and I will get to it. So once you are all set, you can head up to app.talisman.xyz, and that's actually the Talisman application. So as you can see, here is your assets. I just have the dot token, but if you had different tokens from different parachains, for instance, Glimmer, BNC, or A-Star, you would all them see it here. And even you would see if some of those tokens are vested, you would see the vesting time and how much is leaving for unlocking those tokens. So I will get to Talisman a little bit later on. Now I want to show you. Let me see. Now I want to show you how to actually unlock your tokens, because if you participated in crowd loans, you had different options. Either you could go with Polkadot.js, so if you did it like that, your tokens are automatically unlocked. But there was another option, and that was going through parallel finance, that was giving some extra rewards if you contributed to the crowd loan via their application. So here we have parallel finance application. Obviously, you need your MetaMask to be connected to the application. So, sorry, not MetaMask, but Talisman. I've already did it. So this is app.parallel.fi. And actually, it's really easy to withdraw your dot that you put into the parallel finance for the crowd loan. So we just go to crowd loan. It will open a new page. So here you can actually see ongoing crowd loans, if there are any, and you can see all the completed crowd loans. So if you have participated in any of these, you just go to redeem dot. And now you would see all the projects that you have contributed to via parallel finance. You would just click on redeem, sign the transaction, and that's it. But actually there's one more thing, and that is your dot is still on a parallel finance parachain. So what you need to do is actually go to overview. And from this overview, you would actually see your dot. And here is my relay chain balance, but here would you see your parallel finance balance. So you would see your para tokens, and you would see your dot token as well. So you would click transfer to relay chain, similar to this button, and there will be a pop-up, and you will just sign the transaction, and your dot tokens will safely arrive to the Polkadot relay chain. There's just one more small thing. There's a checkbox, and it's automatically checked, and that means your dot will be actually provided as a liquidity into the parallel finance, and the checkbox is actually in the previous step. So be careful about that when you are claiming your dot tokens. If you want to withdraw them from parallel, you need to uncheck the checkbox. So just beware of that. So now once you have your tokens, actually we can close this one. There was another option for people who used Bifrost SALP protocol, and I think it wasn't available for the first batch of auctions, but I will still show you for the people who will be claiming their dot tokens from the next batch of crowd loans. So if we go to dashboard, to start from the very beginning, I'm on bifrost.app/dashboard. I'm connected with my Talisman account, as you can see, the big unlock staker. And actually, this is the dashboard. So it's kind of like dashboard for the Bifrost protocol itself. So now you can see the crowd loans. So we will go to Polkadot V crowd loan. Yeah, it's connecting. So just give it a few seconds. And as you can already see, here's a button, My Contribution. So if you go over there, obviously, I won't see any because, like I said, I just created a new account for purposes of this presentation. So there's no crowd loan history now, right now. But like I said, if you contributed via Bifrost, that will be an easy way how to claim your dot tokens. And the same as with Parallel, obviously you need to teleport your dot tokens from Bifrost parachain to Polkadot relay chain if you want to have them over there. So there's again one extra step needed. So, and that finally brings us to staking, because we already have our dot tokens ready, and I will head back to Talisman, and I wanted to show you a couple of options how you can actually do it. So the two main options are actually staking directly with the validators, or you can go with nomination pools, and that mostly depends on how many dots you have. Because currently there's a limit around 500 dots, and if you have less, you are actually not getting any rewards with direct staking with validators. So if you have less than 500 dots, then nomination pools are definitely recommended, because you can start from as low as 1 dot. On the other hand, there's a downside, and the downside is you actually cannot participate in governance if you stake in nomination pools, which is not true, which is not true with staking with validators, because if you stake with validators, you can still vote on referenda and participate in governance. So we have a Talisman right now. So the first option I want to show you, because Talisman supports nomination pools directly. So if I have, like I said, only 2.1 dot, I can go to staking and I can go to get started. So my asset is dot. You can actually stake more assets directly from Talisman, as you can see, Kusama as well, and Aleph 02. But we want to stake dot. So my account is the big unlock staker, as I mentioned. It's the only account in my wallet. So here I can see it, right? This is the one. And I can do start staking. So this is a calculation of my rewards for me. I want to stake, let's say, 1 dot. And here I can choose which nomination pool I want to use. So Talisman is already pre-selecting one for you, and that's Talisman pool, which is created by the Talisman itself. But if you wanted to change it, you could actually go to more detail and click on pick a different pool. And now we can see all the various pools, that you can choose from. And I will get to it in a later point, which pools to actually choose and which you can, with your dots, support the community validators as well. So this is this. And now that's all the Talisman offers in regard to staking, but I have to reiterate, Talisman is a really, really nice wallet. Staking is not the only thing you can do in here. So as you can see, you can transfer tokens between chains. So if I go for my dot, I could say from Polkadot network, I want to transfer it to HydraDX, for instance. So teleport of tokens is supported directly from your wallet. Then you could go to crowd loans. Actually, if you go to end it, you can see all the past crowd loans. And I even think you can claim your DOT tokens from here if you have participated in a crowd loan. So that's a nice thing as well. And you could also directly buy the tokens from banksa.com, which is like a fiat gateway that allows you to buy Polkadot tokens directly. So I would say that's really nice about Talisman, but now, as I promised, let's switch to the Polkadot staking dashboard, because this is also a really nice change from 2 years ago, because if you remember, like I said, 2 years ago, we only had Polkadot.js and nothing else, but luckily, developers from Parity have created this really, really nice staking dashboard. So if you go to overview, it's staking.polkadot.network. Here you can see various data about the staking in Polkadot. As you can see, there are multiple options. You can stake, and you can stake with pools or nominate. So first of all, we will try the pools. You can see 161 active pools. There's only one dot needed to join the pool. So now we will go to all pools. Here we can actually search for interesting pools, or the pools. Maybe you know some pool that is really interesting. Maybe you want to support someone, because usually we'll find here pools from wallets. So here you can see sub wallet. We already saw Talisman. You can even find pools from exchanges. So as you can see, here is Coinbase Cloud. But you can also find pools that were created by communities and validators like us. So what would I really recommend? We have Chaos DAO, which is the biggest DAO in Polkadot ecosystem, that is like really, really active in governance. It really tries to educate all the participants in the ecosystem. So it's really nice to support those guys with your nomination. But also you could go for community validators like VR. And our pools, actually, we search for it, because you can search for pool as well. It's Validator Alliance DAO. This is actually an alliance that we founded together with Sig, who is also on this webinar too. So that's kind of our initiatives which we done together, and the point is to group together community validators that are working for Polkadot community. And also we have one more, and that is United Block. That's a pretty new pool, but you can see it has a really low commission, only 1%, which is really, really nice for your rewards. And also there are 12 community validators you can help with your nomination. So, and if you go to nominate, it will actually, okay, first of all, I need to connect with my wallet. So I click on connect. Talisman, obviously. I select my account, which is this one. I'll connect. And now, all right, what's going on here? Oh, all right. Now I'm connected to the application. As you can see, there's the big unlock staker again. And it's telling me I'm not nominating right now, so I can start. And there are various steps you need to go through, and I think this is a really, really big improvement from Polkadot.js, because it's like nicely documented and it's telling you what you can do. Okay, so we have 3 options for payout destination. The first one is compound, and that means if you want to restake your staking rewards, so you mean you can compound your rewards over time. The second one is You can set it as a free balance, so it means it won't be restaked, and you can withdraw your dot rewards immediately. And the third option is you can send your rewards to completely another account. So let's leave it to compound, and let's go to second step. And
Mario, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man.
thanks a lot.
Yeah,
It was my
I
pleasure.
think yeah, I think I can even use it.
Yeah, we can do this part later on, I guess.
Okay. Too easy
Yeah,
to
all right, guys.
so okay, wait, let's do this again. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this was a very good topic. A lot of insight putting in from you guys, and definitely. So before we say goodbye, do you have any word for Polkadot communities and what your plan from your business and what you expect from Polkadot communities? And yeah, maybe starting with Peter first again. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, as usual. Well, our plans are really simple. We just want to do what we are already doing, and we want to do more of that. So we want to take more participation in the governance. We still want to produce more and more content. We plan to organize actually more Twitter Spaces with interesting projects and parachains from the ecosystem. So we really like what we do, and we want to do even more in this way. So we are really looking forward to do this, and I think the future for Polkadot is really bright. Actually, we see quite a lot of interesting projects being developed on. And with that said, I would say there's a lot of opportunities for community to actually participate as well. Like you can participate in governance, you can go to any of your favorite project and try to become a member of the community. Try to help people on the Discord and actually become an ambassador. So this is a really, really nice way, especially now in the bear market, when everything seems to be quite calm. I would say the opposite is true. Like a lot of stuff is happening, under the hoods, and a lot of development is going on with many of the projects in the ecosystem. So the best thing you can do is get yourself more involved, and let's build this decentralized future together.
Okay. How about you, Sik? Do you have any of this?
Yeah, sure. Same than Peter. I'm here to stay, and I love this ecosystem, and I do what I love. And my only focus and goal is to engage more users to participate in actual on-chain governance and all this stuff. There's a lot of chattering about Polkadot network agents right now, and there's really space to participate and engage for everyone, no matter what's your skill set. We need everything. So no matter if you're a developer or if you like to translate stuff or do marketing and organizational events, there's everything you can do in Polkadot, and everything is open for you and me to join. So that's all I want, and all I envision for Polkadot is a broader adoption and even more engagement from the users for the not so pleasant topics like governance and stuff.
Okay. So let's closing with Jim.
Okay, thanks. Great to be on the panel with all of you, and thanks, Chris, for setting this up. It's great being on this journey with everyone else in the Polkadot community and the wider ecosystem. So in terms of what's next for myself and Certum, well, this community and this ecosystem has really given me a chance to do what I love, turn a hobby into something more real. And so I think, continuing to look at ways to work with the community to create a positive feedback loop where I'm adding more value to the community, and the community, continues to let me do what I love, is really, I think, ideal for everyone. There's sometimes I think within the community, there's a feeling that, it's a net zero, competition. But to me, it's not at all. It's everyone outside of Polkadot that we can bring in that creates unlimited opportunity for the ecosystem and for everyone. So focusing on spreading the word of this community and ecosystem is one of my big priorities as well. So once again, thanks for the opportunity to be here and talk about these important topics.
Yeah, thanks definitely, again, I would like to thank you guys for being here one more times, and definitely you guys making consensus layer more fun, right? Yeah, and um, I think this is the end of the conversations, and see you guys on the next episode. And yeah, see you guys also Polkadot communities, and don't forget to follow Polkadot Insiders and sub them reference and definitely Polkadotter. Yeah, thank you. See you again.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Bye.